turning unemployment into opportunity. Alex never imagined he would have to pack up his desk on a Monday morning. One moment, he was a key employee at a marketing firm, and the next, he was sitting in a cold conference room, hearing the words, "We regret to inform you that we have to let you go." His heart sank as he tried to process the shock. The office he had confidently walked into every day now felt distant and unfamiliar as he carried a cardboard box filled with his belongings. The bright career he had built suddenly vanished, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot under a gray sky, wondering what would happen next. That evening, Alex sat silently on his couch, slowly coming to terms with reality. For the first time in years, he did not set an alarm for the next morning. He stared out the window, watching the fading sunset, feeling empty and lost. Unemployment was no longer just a word, it had become his new reality. Throughout his life, Alex had tied his identity and success to his job. Losing it left him with a painful void. As night fell, fear and uncertainty weighed heavily on him. He had no idea how he would face the coming days. But one thing was certain, his life had changed overnight. The following days were the hardest Alex had ever faced. Each morning, he had a brief moment of peace before remembering that he no longer had a job. The daily routines that once provided stability were gone. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, scrolling through endless job listings in vain. Fear and self-doubt grew as his job applications were repeatedly rejected or ignored. "Maybe I'm not good enough," he thought as he stared at yet another politely worded rejection email. The savings he had planned for a vacation were now being used to pay rent and buy essentials, making him increasingly anxious. Alex's emotions were a roller coaster. Some days, he felt hopeful, telling himself that if he kept trying, something good would come. But on other days, he couldn't even get out of bed, overwhelmed by the weight of failure. He spent sleepless nights, his mind racing with questions. Will I ever find another job? Will I disappoint everyone? He started avoiding his friends, declining invitations out of embarrassment. Once proud of his career, Alex now felt useless and defeated. Financial pressure grew heavier. At the grocery store, he carefully calculated every dollar, putting back non-essential items before reaching the checkout. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and he dreaded answering calls from his landlord. The challenge wasn't just about money, it was about fighting the voice in his head telling him that he had hit rock bottom and couldn't get back up. But he didn't know that this dark phase was about to open up an opportunity he had never considered. One scorching afternoon, after months of unsuccessful job hunting, Alex reached his breaking point. He looked around his cluttered apartment, filled with rejection letters and unfinished notes. Feeling completely drained, in an effort to find some peace, he decided to clean up his space. As he sorted through an old storage box, he stumbled upon a small wooden container he hadn't opened in years. Inside, he found an old apron and a handwritten recipe for cinnamon raisin bread, one his grandmother had taught him when he was a child. Holding the apron in his hands, Alex smiled for the first time in a long while. Memories of his childhood flooded back, the sweet aroma of cinnamon, the warmth of the kitchen, and the joy of seeing people's faces light up when they tasted his bread. In that moment, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. It was as if life was whispering, "This is a part of you that you have forgotten." He realized that his passion for baking had always been there, buried under the demands of his corporate job. That evening, he decided to bake a loaf of cinnamon raisin bread using his grandmother's recipe. As he kneaded the dough, his stress began to fade. As the sweet scent filled his small kitchen, he felt a newfound sense of purpose. The next morning, he brought a few slices to his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Lee. She took a bite and smiled. "This is delicious. You should sell this at the farmer's market." That simple remark sparked a new idea in Alex's mind. He realized that he had been so focused on finding the same type of job he had lost that he never considered a different path. Could he turn his love for baking into a small business? For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of excitement in his heart.